President Trump just signed an executive order that extolled the virtues of the American flag and also condemned those who burned the American flag. On its face, Democrats interpreted it as an assault on free speech, on their right to burn the American flag. I'm afraid that our Democratic friends have walked into another classic Trump trap.
When you burn the American flag, it incites riots at levels that we've never seen before. People go crazy. In a way, both ways. There are some that are going crazy for doing it. There are others that are angry about them doing it.
Here's what the executive order actually says. Desecrating it is uniquely offensive and provocative. It is a statement of contempt, hostility, and violence against our nation, the clearest possible expression of opposition to the political union that preserves our rights, liberty, and security. Burning this representation of America may incite violence and riot. So we're going to get into the legal question of protected speech and whether flag burning qualifies, but first we have to consider the politics of it all. Trump's executive order, supposedly banning flag burning, was really just designed to make Democrats go crazy. They should have sniffed out the bait from a million miles away, but they didn't. They took the bait, and as a result, Trump now has the upper hand. He is winning on this question. As National Review's Ed Whalen said, President Trump's executive order on flag burning is replete with qualifiers that strip it of any discernible meaning. To the fullest extent possible sounds aggressive, but it actually means within the bounds permitted by law. So this executive order doesn't have the teeth that Democrats are accusing Trump of showing in this case. National Review had a great column explaining this, but Trump has been in the political world for 10 years now. You'd think that Democrats could predict the way he works by now, but they still haven't. They haven't figured out his formula, his political pattern. It goes something like this. Step 1, state something that is objectively true and objectively bad that is happening right now in the country. Step 2, deploy something very forceful to combat that. So it's kind of like with Trump's crackdown on crime in Washington, D.C. He's deploying the National Guard as a show of force because the progressive-controlled D.C. Police Department and local government have abdicated their responsibility to actually keep residents safe. It's dramatic, some would say it's theatrical, but it's not a stunt. It's something that Trump did in response to the negligence of the D.C. police because crime is, in fact, a real problem. It's the same thing with this executive order and flag burning. Rather than admitting, like with DC crime, that there is a crime problem, that flag burning is a reprehensible, anti-American, unpatriotic thing to do, Democrats with the DC crime problem are saying, actually, crime doesn't exist. This isn't happening. And with flag burning, they're saying, oh, flag burning is defensible. Flag burning is good, actually. We should have more American flag burning. So they're running into, unfortunately, an optics trap where they look not great because they're defending effectively burning the American flag. It's only been a couple days of this flag burning EO in the news cycle, but it's going to be interesting to see how Democrats continue to react to this or overreact. For instance, are we going to see a Democratic Senator Van Hollen type stunt? He's the guy, if you remember, who sat down with Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the illegal alien who had a pretty rough criminal record, sat down with him for margaritas in El Salvador to protest him being deported to that very supposedly brutal prison complex. Are we going to see lawmakers like him, like AOC, like Chuck Schumer at a press conference defending burning the American flag? Are they going to burn the American flag themselves to make a point? I don't know. Because again, they could just say, actually, the symbol of our national identity, the American flag, is something beautiful, that is sacred, and worth protecting. But instead, they're just arguing on behalf of the activist protesters who drag our flag through the mud. That's just not a great look. And we know that they love lots of flags and murals when it comes to the Palestinian flag, BLM flags, pride flags, but not the American flag? How much do you hate our country to have that position? What did this country do to you? Are you even aware of how amazing and advanced this country is in comparison to, I don't know, say Gaza, which isn't exactly number one for human rights. But this raises another question. Aside from Trump's executive order, which, as I said, doesn't have the teeth that the Democrats are assigning to it, should we ban burning of the American flag, given that some who have desecrated the pride flag or BLM flags have actually been charged? To quote conservative activist Christopher Rufo, "I'm sympathetic to the argument that burning the American flag is protected speech, but right now we are putting people in prison for spinning their tires over the pride flag, so it might be a good idea to have the debate about which symbols are sacred in America today." So reading that tweet, you might think, wow, okay, maybe there's a double standard on the left. Are people who desecrate the pride flag in public, are they being put in jail, but we're not banning burning the American flag? Well, so in recent years, we've seen charges brought against multiple individuals who have vandalized Black Lives Matter murals and crosswalks. Since 2020, penalties have ranged from misdemeanor criminal mischief to felony hate crime charges, depending on the specifics of each case. So the key words here are vandalism and crosswalks, because there's a distinction here in the eyes of the law between vandalism, which is desecration or destruction of public property. Crosswalks would fall into that, even if there is a rainbow across the crosswalk, versus private personal property. So the law treats you as an individual taking your personal American flag and burning it differently than, say, getting skid marks or torching a mural in the middle of the street that the taxpayers or the local city have paid for because it has some left-wing political message on it. Which brings us to the legal matter of all of this. There's actually Supreme Court precedent, not one time, but twice, about the issue of flag burning, specifically the American flag. In 1989, there was a case called Texas v. Johnson. It involved a guy who at the 1984 RNC burned a flag. Texas said, hey, that's illegal, but the case went all the way to the Supreme Court. They litigated it, and they found that actually that is constitutionally protected free speech.
Today's ruling involved this demonstration during the Republican National Convention in 1984, a demonstration that included the burning of the American flag.
The court ruled today that burning the American flag as a form of political protest is a right protected by the First Amendment to the Constitution. The decision reflects a very divided court. The debate, as always, deeply divides the country.
In response to that, Congress passed the Flag Protection Act in 1989. That same year, it was signed by George H.W. Bush. We thought that was the end of it, but it was not, because in response to that law, a lot of people started burning the American flag in protests, such as in front of the Supreme Court itself. So there was another case in 1990 called United States v. Eichmann. Eichmann was one of the activists that was burning the flag in front of the Supreme Court. So SCOTUS actually ruled once again in favor of burning the American flag being constitutionally protected speech, invalidating that law I just mentioned that was signed by HW. I agree with former Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia. He said, "You should be in no doubt that, patriotic conservative that I am, I detest the burning of the nation's flag, and if I were king, I would make it a crime. But as I understand the First Amendment, it guarantees the right to express contempt for the government, the Congress, the Supreme Court, even the nation, and the nation's flag." I have to agree with Scalia. He's obviously an originalist. That is his preferred style of jurisprudence. And I do think that the Constitution, unfortunately, protects burning the American flag, though I find it morally reprehensible and abominable, and I wish it wasn't so casual. But the moral of the story is at the end of this news cycle, Democrats just look gullible. They look like they got duped again by President Trump by losing their ever-loving minds over something that is actually bad, that should not be celebrated. Burning the symbol of your national heritage, like your national identity. That should be frowned upon. But like with the border crisis, like with the DC crime crackdown, like with so many other issues that run the gamut, cultural, social, economic, Democrats overreact and they end up handing Trump the win. If you didn't catch my last video, it's on the brave new world we're probably going to be entering into as a culture if we make embryo screening mainstream and widespread. For more on that, click here.